Welcome back to College Football Addiction, a really big one in the ACC on Saturday night where Louisville took down Clemson and didn't just take them down, like absolutely beat the tar out of them, dominated the game, and the final score probably wasn't even a good indication of that. We're going to talk with my buddy Jeremey from Cardinal Sports Zone today. Appreciate BetUS for their support. Jeremey, are you, we're not quite 48 hours out from it, but we're maybe closer to 40. Are you still living that high from Saturday night?
Well, it's just like we all suspected. Louisville went and just absolutely beat the crap out of them in a nighttime game. No, it's as we said on this show last week, and as I said on my own show this past week, uh, people got on me a little bit for picking Clemson, and I was like, look, head versus heart. Until we can actually beat them, it's hard to sit there and say we can beat them, but had to play a perfect game against them and had to hope that they made mistakes. And boy, did they. They made a ton of mistakes.
Yeah.
Very un-Dabo like, very un-Clemson like. So, and we capitalized on them. And that was the keys of the game. I said we needed to make less mistakes than them. We did. We needed to outplay them on the O line. We did. Our O line had to dominate their D line. We did, and we had to be able to tackle, and we did, because our offense. We all know that our offense has been really good all year anyway. That wasn't the issue. It was the defense, and man, the defense, it came to play.
How about this? And I'm sure you've talked about this, and obviously, when you watch the game, some of this makes more sense. But if I'd have told you that you were only going to have 22 minutes of time of possession, you wouldn't force one turnover. Tyler Shuck only had 150 yards. 100.
Yeah.
If I'd have told you those three things, we just said like, oh man, we're not doing a recap. Like to have 20 minutes of possession on the road in Death Valley, not force any turnovers. It wasn't like a fluky game where they had 4 turnovers down inside the 10 or something. It, like Louisville just soundly beat them and obviously ran the ball very well, over 200 yards rushing. Like, I'm not trying to take away from what Louisville did at all. I just think it's one of the craziest box scores to look at and say, like, you had 20 minutes of time possession, you put up 30 plus points in Death Valley, and it could have been more.
Absolutely, and I said that leading off our show yesterday. I said if you'd have told me that they would have out yardaged us by almost 100, and they would have had a whole quarter time of possession advantage on us, I would have said 44-7 them,
Yeah,
easily. But the issue is where it's misleading a little bit is the turnovers. No, there weren't any recordable turnovers on either side. We did force them. We did block 2 kicks, so to me that's turnover. We did force them to turn over on downs twice. So to me, we did. Even though the box score says 0-0 turnover wise, they turned the ball over to us 4 times, and that was one of the keys to victory, was to force them to make mistakes. They did. I have no idea why in the fourth quarter they decided to play lollygag ball and just. Again, I'm just as shocked as everybody else is, but they got the ball in the fourth quarter and ran about 3 minutes off the clock, just sitting there hanging out and having a good time. And I was all for that.
yeah.
And then they had, again, we talk about the 15-minute time of possession advantage they had. Uh, so a lot had to do with their complete lack of urgency in the fourth quarter. But those 2 drives that they missed, that they got field goals blocked on, were long, sustained drives that took a chunk of clock off each time. So uh, kudos to us for being able to get in there. Those were our 4th and 5th block kicks of the season. That's not something that That's not. We're used to having great quarterbacks and good running backs and good wide receivers. We've never been known as special teams U. And this season, that's been between returned kicks. I mean, we had a return punt for a touchdown that should have counted, but it shouldn't have. What I'm saying is there was no need for that guy to block the guy in the back because Jacory was already well past him
Yeah.
when it occurred. But
I'll get right back to chatting with Jeremy, but first I do want to tell you about our friends over at BetUS. We've been telling you about them all year, and we really appreciate you that have signed up, and BetUS for the support on the channel. If you're into betting or if you're placing any wagers on different games, make sure you're doing that at BetUS. You can use our code right now, YouTube150, that's YouTube150, to get a 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit. Your next two deposits are up to 125% sign-up bonus, all of that up to $2,000. We appreciate BetUS for their support of not only our channel, but also partnering with us all season. Go check out betus.com right now for the very best in sports betting.
When it happens against you, you hate it. When it happens for you, you're like, heck yeah, this is really cool that we're able to do all this stuff. So, yeah, the time of possession was a big deal. We went into the game with a plus 30-second time of possession average on the season. And for them to have had it a whole quarter, and granted, a lot of those, I say they out-yardaged us. A lot of that happened in the fourth quarter when they were just lulling around and just, garbage time yards. But, yeah, if you had told me before the game we'd lost the time of possession and they didn't turn the ball over, Shuck didn't get to 200 yards passing, didn't throw a touchdown, I would have thought we were in big trouble.
Some of those drives, a minute and 51 seconds, a 2-minute and 53-second drive, a 1-minute drive, a 1-minute drive, and then a 10-second drive later. When you can cap all of those off with points by Louisville, I don't care if they're 3 seconds, right? Like, get points, and we'll see it on the next one. So yeah, they were efficient, right? It wasn't just crazy things happening. Like, Louisville just scored and scored quickly, and they moved quickly, and you had some quick things that happened, even on ones where they weren't. They a 50-yard field goal where they didn't get a yard. That one was only a minute-long drive, but you still scored points at the end of it. And so, I think you take that, and you're not too upset with it.
Absolutely.
What impressed you the most? Okay, so I'll let me back up from that. Going in and winning a night game in Death Valley is the automatic answer. So take that away because nobody really seems to do that. But outside of just like the team coming to get like that kind of stuff, like from a matchup standpoint, from a player standpoint, a position group standpoint, that's kind of what I mean more. I don't want the generic, not that you would give a generic thing, but there's nothing that compares to beating Clemson in Death Valley at night.
Are you saying I would give a generic answer?
I just think that's the automatic answer, not generic. That's the automatic, because there's nothing that's as impressive as that, in my opinion. And to beat them the way you guys did. The final score is not indicative of the beatdown.
No, absolutely not. I mean, the facts are not only, let's not even take into consideration the night game. I mean, they're 82-4 there since 2011, I believe. And in night games, they had won 22 straight night games going into it. But no, what impressed me the most was our battered offensive line, its performance. That was what I told everybody that prior. The offensive line, we were down a couple of starters. We only had, I think, 6 offensive linemen available for this game, and 2 of the guys, one of them was returning for injury in Monroe Mills, and another guy in Renato Brown who hadn't started a bunch of games since he got injured last year. That impressed me to be able to go up against the Clemson defensive line, which before the season, if you'd asked everybody, they would have said, all right, the toughest D-line you're going to face is Clemson. For that battered unit to be able to get out there and not only dominate. See, now I'm saying Miami fans dominate. I didn't say that before. Dominate the Clemson D-line, but to not even allow a sack against them with a makeshift offensive line, that impressed me the most. I mean, I'd love to say the improvements in tackling, the tackles for loss impressed me the most, but they just happened to happen on a day where the offensive line shined.
It felt like some frustration was taken out by Louisville.
Yeah,
some frustration of and I saw Manny Diaz, who writes for The Athletic. He covers the ACC, and he's down there in Miami, so he's always kind of covered Miami, but he covers the ACC specifically now. And I saw him tweeting about maybe Louisville isn't as bad as everybody thought they were. Like you start to look at their losses, and that's something you and I had talked about a lot.
Yeah.
Hey, this team is they haven't found a way to finish, But this team is like right there with Notre Dame, and this team is right there with Miami, and this team is right there with SMU. And so if you think those are good teams, or if you think one of those is a good team, or two of those are whatever, right? Those are highly ranked teams at the very least. And SMU's one loss is to an undefeated BYU team. And so to me, it felt like, all right, we are tired of playing these one score close games, being that pretty loser, right? Oh man, we kept it really close with a great team. Pat us on the back for being a pretty loser is what I'll call it. And it felt like to me, Louisville's like, no, bleep that. We're going to win, and we're gonna keep piling on. And to me, that's what. I don't know. I'm not a Louisville fan. I'm watching it from a very unbiased. I don't care who wins this game. That's what it felt like to me as an outsider watching it.
Well, for this year, you can be a Louisville fan. We accept you with open arms. Victory Monday, we know, has not been a very frequent thing for you. But yeah, it definitely felt like a lot of frustration. Again, all three of our losses come to teams that are in the top 13 by a total of 21 points. I mean, we almost beat Clemson by as many points as we've lost to the other three teams by. And we knew we had to beat one of the coming into the season. And I'm just gonna be perfectly honest. I do the predictions every year. I'm normally pretty spot on. I was not spot on this year, but the one thing I was spot on about is I said in our season preview, I said I think this can be the year that we beat Clemson. All the stars align. I had no idea that it was going to be a night game, or that would have backed me off that prediction pretty quickly. But I did say we had to beat one of Miami, Clemson, Notre Dame. Never in a million years. If you'd have had me rank that, would I thought that would have been the one we beat out of the three. But again, now that gives us a little bit of confidence as a fan base. Can that proverbial monkey is off of our back. First time we've beaten them since we joined the ACC. So, and we thought it was going to be pretty easy since the team down the road had done it a couple times. But apparently, shout out to them for a strong showing against Tennessee and every team they played this year and lost to. I digress. But yeah, it definitely was a feel good moment as far as okay, we knew we could beat, and let's also be honest about that. We did not solely lose to those three teams. They had some help in Charlotte, but again, I'll step back a second. But to be able to go out and overcome the Clemson crowd, the venue. We played there 4 other times, and the refs absolutely gave us the screw job. They were so. I saw calls in that game the other night against Clemson that I never would have expected us to get at Clemson, but they've got a good team. They showed why they were a good team when they were attempting to come back, but didn't. And it just felt good. And we got we got Stanford, Pittsburgh, and some JUCO team from Lexington that we're going to play coming up. And we got a chance to turn the season around, whereas we were all kind of disappointed that we had the 3 losses. Regardless if they were all 3 by 1 point, they're all still 3 losses. This kind of made up for all 3 of them, I feel. And we got a chance to make the season. I mean, I don't think there's a shot in where that we can make the ACC championship game now, because that would entail one of the 2 teams just know the way I did the math. If they went out and we went out, the best we can do is 3rd place. Yeah. One of them has to lose 2 games, and I just don't see that on either of their schedules. So, and I'm not sure that a 3 loss, even though the computers really like Louisville, checked in at number 14 in the FPI yesterday with Clemson at 13, which make sense. But I think that it still could be a special season. I'm not really sure that the playoffs are on the horizon for us, but stranger things have happened. We just need a couple teams, in my opinion, ranked right ahead of us to lose a game or 2, and we might be in it. But for right now, I'm excited to maybe go to a Pop-Tart Bowl. We became bowl eligible, Anything in Orlando at that time of the year is warm and welcoming, and we'll see what happens. But it absolutely we took all of our frustrations out on Clemson, and for the fans, you know how fans can be. Win a game, you're the best ever. Lose a game, you suck. Fire everybody. I think for your fickle, normal, everyday fans, this turned the season around for them. For somebody like me that played football at the D1 level, and I look a little bit more into it, and I try not to let my emotions overtake me. I was already satisfied with the season because we played those three. We only had the three losses to teams that have a combined one loss on the season. They're like
That
30.
one loss to another undefeated team.
Yeah. So uh,
Or I guess
I'm
two losses. Yeah, SMU has one and Notre Dame has one. So yeah, I guess two losses. But yeah,
oh yeah, I forgot about Notre Dame's loss. So I think
and so,
they're
so will the committee in about 3 weeks. So don't worry about it.
absolutely.
I'm
Uh,
still bitter.
no, that's fine. I think they're like a combined 30-2, whatever it
Yeah.
is. But yeah, I'm excited to see where these last three games how they go and to see where we end up in the postseason.
Yeah, I think the bye comes at a good time, and then I think you really gotta like the way that you get and, I don't want to take anything away from anybody, but they're not a real school anyway, not real ACC school anyway. I think that you got to kind of like, I'll take shots at Stanford. Actually,
That's
yeah,
fine.
back that up. I spent 6 months saying that it was dumb that they were getting added to the conference. So you do have to like not only the bye, coming off of emotional win. I love a bye because like I hate the letdown idea. I hate the idea of like having to play again just 6-7 days later. That's tough to stop reading your own press clippings and stuff. So I like the bye. I like the placement of Stanford right after that because you probably get to go test some things that you want to do against a much tougher Pittsburgh team than Stanford is. In that Stanford game, you get to try some things against another opponent and see kind of what works, set some stuff up, maybe put some false stuff on film. And so I like that setup. And then, yeah, I know the rivalry game is weird and weird things happen in it. And I would have picked the team that didn't win last year in it. But still, you got with the way both teams have played this year, you got to like it. So I like Louisville's chances to get to 9. And then, bowl games are fairly meaningless. But shoot, if you can sell a 10-win season, I mean, that's certainly, I think fans will still. I mean, you tell me this better than I can tell it, but fans will always kind of wonder what if we could have snuck one of those one out. But at that point, you can't do anything. To go from 4-3 to 10-3 would be a hell of a turnaround. Like it's hard. You can't cry over the milk that's already been spilled, right? Like yeah, it would have been nice to pull one of those out early in the year. But to go on a 6-game winning streak to end the season, what does that do for you next year, right? Like, how does that propel you into next year? How does that propel you in the portal and in recruiting at the end of this year? And it's not maybe the phenomenal season that Louisville could have had, but it's certainly a springboard, I think, to what they could be next year. Putting back-to-back 10s together is pretty impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll go ahead and pile on with you. With us stepping out of conference play this next game to play somebody from the Pac-2 is going to be. And for the love of God, people, they are the Cardinal. We are the Cardinals, plural. I can't stand when these national people get on there and call us the Cardinal. They probably don't like it too much when they call them the Cardinals, even though it's kind of a term. It's an upgrade, some would say, to call that program that hardly wins at anything a school's name that. Okay, I'm not trying to make a whole new fan base of enemies. I'm just kidding, guys. Maybe, but anyway, yeah, it's the season can be salvaged. I think the season has been salvaged for your normal everyday fickle fans. Uh, the season has been completely turned around, and thank goodness, because that's the last thing we needed to hear was Brom only got 8 wins this year. He needs to be fired. Because even at that, 8 wins in this day and age of college football is a feat. There are teams out there, and this is not me throwing shots at any fan base, but there's teams out there that would love to have 8 or more wins every
Sure.
season. And for Jeff Brown to bring that kind of stability back after the instability that we endured the prior 3 seasons under Shatterfield, it's it's a good thing, and I'm glad that 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 Brown was able to bring that, but stability back. But like you said with the bowl games, and I'm not even sure in this day and age the playoffs ensure your star players to play because it's still just the playoffs. We're in a day and age where the kids are rightfully worried about their future, but they sit out of they sit out of the games. And even last year we played USC in the bowl game, and we had people that sat out and we got busted.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the true. Like I almost would wish that if you had a certain amount of percentage, a certain percentage of your players that sat out, that you just didn't even go play a bowl game because what's the point?
Yeah, I've heard interesting thoughts around bowl games and what can be done, and I've heard people say like, "Man, play the bowl game as a spring game, play the bowl game and just truly make it an exhibition, just play it as a spring game." I've heard people say play the bowl game as the first game of the next year. Shoot, that'd be a lot of fun. Now that would kind of stink because it's not the guys that earned their way there and they could
For
be
sure.
totally different teams. And so I'm not saying any of those are great options, but what's not a great option is Florida. It's just exactly what happened to Florida State last year. And Florida State, oh, everybody quit. Well, not really. Like 9 of the guys who sat out were injured or first rounders. Like
Right.
first rounders or in like literally 5 guys had surgery. And they didn't want to put off surgery for a month. Florida State played you guys on the 3rd, and then the bowl game was on the 30th. If you're going to the NFL, you're not putting surgery off for a month to play a bowl
No.
game. You're going to the NFL. Florida State had the second most guys drafted in the league, and so you anyway, yeah. But what we don't, so yeah, the spring game option, not a great option. I agree. Playing the first game of next year, not a great option. I agree. But what we got right now is not a great option either. Like I'm just telling you, and I'll tell you, people would care about it more in the spring, and they would care about it more in if it was the first game of next year. And
Yeah.
so I agree, those aren't great options because it's not the same team, but it's a better option than what we got right now. So I agree with you. But they're still fun. They're fun for the fans. You come down here to Orlando, maybe I'll see what I'm doing. That game is on the 30th. Typically, that Pop-Tart Bowl. It's about an hour from my house. Maybe I'll come down there if you're in Orlando.
Let's go. Let's go. For sure. Would it help if they put the bowl games like give you 2, like what if they played the bowl games in mid-December? All the bowl games, you give every team a week off, and then they played the bowl game the next week instead of it being. I think that really is what those athletes that are preparing for the draft are like. Well, we need a lot of time to. I don't know if it would help, especially if your team was in the playoff. That might mean that you're playing well into January.
Yeah.
I mean, so I don't know what the fix is for that, but it's certainly it's not working this way at
64
all.
team playoff. That'll do it.
Oh my god.
I'm not advocating for that. Cut that from the tape. I don't want to advocate for that.
You didn't really say that, guys. Cut it. Cut
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Fake producer that doesn't exist. Cut that out. But Jeremy, where can people follow you, man? Where can they find your work?
CardinalSportsZone.com is where you can find all of our written stuff, and on YouTube you can find us at I think you can search by ats on YouTube at Cardinal Sports Zone, or just type in Cardinal Sports Zone 3 words in YouTube and you'll find us.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you for hanging out today. Again, appreciate BetUS for their support. We'll talk to you soon, bud.
All right, appreciate you.